Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Priti Patel seems to be positioning herself as some sort of weird, maybe unintentional champion of immigration. I did not expect to be talking about this today. It's actually how it's turned out. This is the second video today where I'm talking about effectively a former senior member of the past Conservative government. But you know, listen to the following quotes. And bear in mind, she said this on GB News. What about all those international students that came in after the pandemic? Are we saying they should not have come into the country? Next quote. Ask your viewers, would they say that we should not have had more doctors and nurses? I think they would not. A lot of these people are also high rate taxpayers. Those are quotes, and they're the sort of statements you would make if you wanted a serious discussion about immigration, which centred on alternatives. They're the sorts of things I've talked about myself. You know, people have this attitude to immigration, as if it's one thing and it's bad, and it's like, okay, so let's think it through then. You know, if you want to restrict the number of foreign students in the UK, then you need to accept it's going to reduce the amount of money coming into the country being spent on local business and services, and therefore reducing the number of jobs that are needed in that area. And it also reduces just in general the amount of money circulating in the country, because remember, this money has come from abroad. It means a smaller economy. It means less money to go around the rest. If you want to restrict access to work visas, you have to accept that that will mean fewer workers in general. So any sector of our economy that was using those workers gets smaller. So it'll be less productive. It means a smaller economy. But for some specific sectors, it means things like you are arguing for a smaller NHS. So you're arguing that in order for you to get medical treatment, you may have to travel further and wait longer. That's what you're arguing for. It means you're also arguing for a smaller care sector, which means that unless you're very rich and you can afford to pay top dollar for care workers, you're going to be looking after your grandparents and parents in their old age. They're moving in with you because there's not going to be enough care homes. But these statements were not made by someone who's desperately trying to get members of the public to think in practical terms about the consequences of immigration. This was Priti Patel on GB News, the Home Secretary who celebrated when her government took away our freedom of movement. The same Priti Patel who implemented an immigration system which she said would result in lower rates of immigration, but instead resulted in not just record levels. They were record levels, but record levels way beyond anything seen before. Yes, we know artificially amplified a little bit due to various factors, but still. And I'm not quite sure what to think about it, because on the one hand, it could just be Priti Patel trying to defend her time in the most senior position she held in government in a bid to cut off accusations of incompetence. Well, you said you'd reduce immigration, you actually increased it. On the other, she's effectively defending the use of immigration for filling in essential roles in public services at the very least, and in particular forms of immigration which boost our economy, which is virtually all of it. She's also literally suggesting that the record net migration figures that caused such a flap last year weren't that bad. She's effectively saying the Conservative Party itself went a bit too overboard in its panic over immigration. She apparently said it was lazy to make a sweeping generalisation that net migration was too high under her government. It's quite funny because when talking about using immigration to attract NHS staff and emphasising the tax revenues that these workers also contribute. Because remember, this isn't a case of, oh, they're doing the job instead of a British person. No, we've still got the shortages. So that means there aren't enough British people to do these jobs. So this is extra, which means extra productivity, extra tax revenues. But she talked about needing to consider the context, which again, I agree with. But the context here is very interesting, because the context in which Priti Patel is saying this, indeed saying anything right now, is that of a Tory party leadership contender trying to do what? You would think trying to become leader. After all, isn't that what all leadership contenders are trying to do? Well, no, not necessarily. As odd as that might sound. Mel Stride, for example, must surely know he's an also-ran. He's not going to win, so why bother? Well, there are two benefits in entering a leadership contest you have no chance of winning. The first is you can introduce talking points into the debate that these serious contenders won't. So Rory Stewart famously tried to do that in the 2019 contest. Tugendhat and Badenoch, arguably there for the same reason in 2022. This time around, Mel Stride, for example, he's actually taken a markedly different position on a number of issues than the other contenders, probably because he's there to stimulate a debate. Not going to win, but plenty of MPs want them in the contest in order to have discussions on some topics that would otherwise be ignored. The second reason is more personal to the contender. They get to raise their profile with the public, and if they come across well, it can boost their chances of a senior role under whoever does win, or set themselves up for a more serious challenge next time. Again, Badenoch and Tugendhat fill this role. Both were also runs in 2022, but both of them ended up in cabinet. And this time around, I don't think either will win, but I can't rule it out either, which makes them realistic contenders this time round, possibly as a result of them raising their profiles in the last leadership contest. Now, it makes no sense for Patel to be in this contest just to raise her profile. Her profile is already sky high. She was the Home Secretary at a time when immigration policy was undergoing some of its most rapid changes. Not really for the better, I would argue. But people know who she is. It would also seem odd that she's entered the contest just to be a talking point. And if she did want to enter the contest as a talking point, it would seem odd for it to be this talking point. I mean, it's not even just this. Like during the riots, she was effectively defending the behaviour of Black Lives Matter protesters in justifying the police response to them and attacking the far right. She now appears to be saying of immigration, well, let's look at the details and make judgments on a case-by-case basis instead of just using this broad brush to label it all as bad. If Tory MPs wanted to promote a candidate to make this argument, and I would agree the Conservatives should certainly be having this discussion, I'm not sure they would have picked Priti Patel as the one to do it. So all things considered, you would imagine that Patel really does want to win the leadership contest, at which point I have to say this pitch of hers is certainly bold. Like, what's next? Is she going to be champion LGBTQ plus groups next? Maybe she'd like to join the Lib Dems before the Parliament is out. But isn't it incredible? We could do with the Conservatives having a sensible conversation about the realities of immigration policy. They could do with it. Apart from anything else, it might help Labour reverse more of the daft policies Patel and others put in place over the past few years. I just didn't have money on Priti Patel being the one to bring these things up. And I wonder if it's deliberate. Because there will be some Tory MPs who must realise this tilt towards Reform UK narratives, this absolutionist attitude to immigration is a dead end. It's a complete dead end. Chasing after Reform UK is not the way to chase after power. So is it a conscious decision from Priti Patel to say, look, we need to face up to a few facts here? Do people really believe that Priti Patel has the sort of political acumen to understand that some of this chasing of Reform UK talking points is a dead end? Or is it just reactive because she feels she has to defend her time as Home Secretary and doesn't really know where she's going with it? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later.